Now, what I would like to do is show you another class that I've used Piazza in so we can look at some of the question aspects of the course. So I'm going to go up here and you can look for your other courses. I'm going to go back to my spring course that I taught, and this is what a page at the end of the term looks like. When I log into this course, it tells me how many unread posts I have, how many unanswered questions, and how many unresolved follow-ups. So let's talk about each of these. Unread posts just simply means somebody's made a post, created something new, and I have not read it yet. So I'm going to have a blue circle next to it to help me find it easily. Unanswered questions mean that somebody's posted something new as a question and it doesn't have an answer yet. Now that answer could be a student answer or an instructor answer. Neither one is present. No unresolved follow-ups. So when we look at a question, let's pull out this one right here. So here's a question. Here's the title of it. It comes from my practice exam for the final exam, page 23, question 35B. Here's the question. Why is the number of moles 4, not 2? Did bounce half reaction. Here's the student answer. We're talking about part C. And then here's the instructor answer. Yes, titanium is reduced from +4 to 0. So from +4 to 0. So it takes 4 moles of electrons and not 2 up here. So here's your question up top. S is for student answer and I is for instructor answer. So this has 2 answers. And then down here there's a follow-up discussion, and if students aren't satisfied with the answer that they receive, or they have a follow-up kind of question, maybe the next part of the problem, or they want to know more, they can come down here and start a new follow-up discussion. Let me see if I can find one that has one. Okay, here's one with a follow-up discussion. So here's a question. The student posted the question. They posted it right out of the practice exam. This one did not get a student answer. Students didn't answer first. I got to the question first, and so there is an instructor answer here. I went through and tried to talk about what was going on and answer the questions. And then there's a follow-up discussion down here. And so Anonymous posted, for D, I'm using this equation. So we had a follow-up question on part D, and then I responded with an instructor's response. And so this thread can continue, or students can come down and start a new follow-up discussion as well as that. So you will see that this follow-up discussion has, and every follow-up discussion has a bar here that can be resolved or unresolved. And as soon as the follow-up discussion is started, it's marked as unresolved, meaning there's still another question, another response, another concern. When I go in and I answer the question here, as the instructor, I click resolved, so it shows up as resolved. Now, why do I do that? Let's come back up to the very top of the page and talk about how we can use our folders and how we can sort questions and see how many are read and unread and things like that. So if we come up to the top, we can sort our questions. This is showing all right now. We could sort our questions to see how many are unread. So that's a nice, easy thing to do up front. Go to all the unread questions. You can see what's new. I don't have any at this point in the course because I've answered them all. You could look at what's been updated, so what may have changed since you last looked. That's another good sorting tool. What's unresolved. And so unresolved lets you see, okay, it's not a new question, but there's something unresolved. There's a follow-up question that needs to be addressed. Or you can mark all as read. If you're at that point in the semester where we've answered all the questions, we're all done, you can mark them all as read so you don't have them popping up. The other thing we could do is sort by folder. Say we wanted to go back and look at questions from homework 35. Okay, so we can click on our folders up top. You'll see the folders here, homework 30, 31, 32. Go to homework 35, click on that, and it'll pull up all the homework 35 questions. So if students are working on that and go, hey, homework 35 question 2, I had a question about that as well. So we go click on that, and it'll pull up the question, and when I highlight the question, I can see that there's an instructor response to that question. So, oh great, I have a question, the instructor's already answered it, I can go look up there and see. So this was pretty straightforward. The student asked a question, and I answered it. You can also come up here and take to the arrow pointing down, or downward triangle, up here near the question, and this tells you how to link to that post. You can archive it, hide it from your feed so it's gone and you don't see it. You could delete the question from everyone's feed, so if it's an inappropriate question or it's just random, you can do that. You can stop following and copy to another class, or you can mark it as unread. so you want to come back to it. So there are some options for how to tag the questions, if you will, so you can sort them more easily. Another feature you can see up here is that this question's had 11 views, so you can tell how many people were following it, or have even looked at it, or had the same question, as opposed to, let's see, if we go to the final exam, and some of these questions here, if I can come to how do I decide a solution to buffer, 17 students took a look at that one. That was more interesting to more students. Now, sometimes what's going to happen is students will post a question that has already been posted further down. They get kind of lazy. They don't want to search for it. They don't want to kind of look and say, okay, I'm going to go to my final exam. There's, I don't know, 50 questions. I'm not going to bother to look and see if mine's already there. I'm just going to ask it. I'm in a hurry. So what do you do then? Well, if you go up to the question, so here's the question title, and you go over to this arrow here that pops up under the number of views, you can click to follow the question. And so you can get, when you come over here, you can sort by the questions you're following over here. So that's one you want to keep an eye on. Okay, so you can follow the question. You convert it to a note, a question to a note. It may not be a question. It may just be more of a statement. So if you want to take it out of the question answer pool, that works. You can mark it as a duplicate. So what happens if you do that? So I click the mark as a duplicate button. I come over here and it asks me to come down and say, okay, well, which question is it a duplicate of? Well, I see down here it's a duplicate, say, of this question, the page 2542D. So I can click on that and it's going to say, okay, the duplicate question, how can I decide if a solution is a buffer? You're going to mark it as a duplicate of this question, final exam, page 2542D, and you can offer an explanation as why you marked it as a duplicate, and then click on the mark as a duplicate button. What that does is it takes this question, how can I decide if a solution is a buffer, and puts it down to the bottom of our duplicate here, which is our page 2542D. You see this is the same question here. It'll now take all the content from the first question, the one we were marking as duplicate, and put it down on the bottom. And the student will get sent a message that their question has been marked as duplicate. The other options up here in the top right are to change the visibility of the post. When I used to get private notes, I would change the visibility, change it from, if we click on that button, your options down here are to save it as a question versus notes, so you can change that. You could change the folder that it's in, or you can mark an additional folder. Say this is final exam and it needs to go under logistics as well. You can add a folder, or you could take a folder out if you decide that's appropriate. And you can make it visible to the entire class, or you can make it private, or if it was private, you can make it visible to the entire class. So it allows you to kind of play with visibility. I'm going to cancel that. And then if you come up here, the other thing you have the option to do at the top right is to flag as inappropriate. This rarely comes up as an inappropriate question, or you can delete the question if you just feel like it doesn't need to be there. You can do one or the other as a way of monitoring student responses and student behavior. What I do at the beginning of the term to try and cut down on inappropriate or deleting questions is I have students sign a professional code of conduct. I lay out my expectations for how they're going to use clickers in class, my expectations for academic honesty on exams, and my expectations for use in Piazza, that it will be based on course content only. We had some complaints about an exam conflicting with a basketball game coming up one time, and I flagged it as an appropriate way of dealing with their frustration that they would be missing the first 30 minutes of a basketball game. They were not players. They were not part of the university that needed to be at the game at that point in time, so they were going to have to take the exam and they could go see the rest of the game. And so I flagged it as inappropriate and I wrote a response going, okay, this is not the time or the place. I'm sorry you're frustrated. You'll get there. Academics have got to come first. So there are some ways of dealing with any inappropriate responses. I've had very, very positive feedback on that and not had to worry about that much.